often do you take your own advice? This came up for me this week where I didn't see a particular progress and I was just disheartened and discouraged and thought, like, what's happening? And when I sat with it and did my whole reflection thing, I thought, what advice would I give to somebody else if they were going through something and not seeing results or frustrated with the lack of progress? And why aren't I following that advice myself? And it reminded me of the story of my daughter. I know I'm sure I've told this before, but for me it's just so powerful that I'm going to share it again. So when she was little, my daughter wanted to go to karate classes. She was so adamant that karate was going to be her thing. She loved the idea of it. She thought she was going to be a ninja. It was just, she was so passionate about the idea of doing these classes that I found a local group and we booked space and went along. Her little brother came with her because little brothers want to tag along all the time, even though it was really her thing. And I was really excited about taking her there. I was like, it's gonna be amazing. She's gonna love this. She's been on and on about it for probably months. We got there. The class was lovely. I sat and watched her and see how hard she was trying and how much she was listening. And when the class wrapped up, I was super excited. I was like, oh my God, how did you go? How did you find it? Did you love it? And she looked at me and just started crying and said, I hate it. I don't want to come back. She was distraught. And I was really taken aback because of how much I knew that she wanted to do it. But what had happened is in her head, she had it built up that she was just going to go and be like karate chopping and it was all going to be amazing. And when she got there, in reality, what was happening is she was learning something completely new. It was a lot more complicated than what a professional or what somebody who knows what they're doing appears to be. Then there was a level of discipline and learning and understanding and positioning that she just didn't have because it was the first time she'd ever been. And in her head, she'd gone, it hadn't met the expectation that she thought she was going to be able to just go in and just do it. And I remember vividly saying to her, look, don't be upset. Obviously, it's your first time trying this. It's all brand new. There is no way you're going to go in and just be able to do it. You've got to learn these things. And she calmed down the crying and a little bit more. And she was like, yeah, I guess so. But I don't really want to go back. And I was like, but this is something you've been on and on about going. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt. Let's go for 8 weeks. And if at the end of the 8 weeks you still really don't like it, then you give it a fair chance. I said, but you can't give something a fair chance just going to once and basing all of your experiences off of that. And she was like, yeah, okay, I guess so. It's like, you're not going to lose anything by just giving it a few more tries. So that was that. We went back, obviously the second week, and I was like, just trying to check in with her. I wouldn't have got her to do something that she really hated if after 3 or 4 weeks she'd been crying every week. But I was confident that once she'd picked it up a little bit at a time, she would fall into her rhythm with things. So after the second week, I was like, how did you find it? Like, yeah, it was a bit better this week. A few more things made sense. I was able to do a few more things. And I'm sure you can guess, each week something different clicked into place, and she learnt the routines, the katas a little bit more, and she was able to practice the moves and get a little bit more fluid with them. And obviously at the end of the 8 weeks, she was by that point, she was a lot more comfortable with everything, felt like she had actually achieved something and could see the progress a little bit more. And we kept going. And as I said, that was a little while ago when she was younger. And last year, I think it was last year, she actually graded her second Dan black belt, which means that she was a black belt +2. I'm sure it's, yeah, I think it is. I think she's that far. I know she done like a black belt grading a few years back, and that was just because she didn't give up. Even though she couldn't see the results immediately, she persevered with it. And I've got a quote, I've actually got it printed out and like on my wall, which says, "A black belt is a white belt that never quit." And I was like, I love that. I love that idea of you've got to get the reps in. And my advice to her was, just because you're not seeing results straight away, if it's something you particularly want to do, keep doing it, and actually, rather than look for the results, look to keep those tiny promises, look to make those small wins. And that, I thought, with the way that this series is going, is quite another nice bookmark to be with, you know, out of all of the steps that I've discussed, I've sort of spoken about. I think that quite often we can be frustrated when we don't see progress. We can get disheartened when things don't move as quickly as we want them to move, and we can lose a little bit of motivation if the wins that we're seeking aren't happening as fast as we would like them to. And obviously, you know, going back to, do you take your own advice? More often than not, if somebody is learning something new or building a new skill or creating a new habit, it takes time to embed. It doesn't happen overnight. Quite often, in what I've found, is you actually need like reminding sometimes. And that's, you know, going back to the old Slimming World days, I found that going to group helped keep me on track, because it was like every week you had a moment to go, how's everything going? How are we doing? Right, let's plan for the next week. So there is definitely a benefit to some form of community or accountability or reflection work, like it might be like journaling or keeping a habit log or something like that. But for today, that's possibly going to be maybe a topic for another time. But for today, what I really wanted to do is talk about what advice would you give to somebody else that you actually maybe need to sit in with yourself. If you are starting something new, creating a change, striving to achieve something different, don't be disheartened if things aren't working as quickly as you might have anticipated or hoped. Know that every time you put in the reps or do the thing or take the action, what you're actually doing is reinforcing to that message to your brain that you do keep the promises to yourself, that you do follow through on the actions that you wanted to follow through on, that you are building that trust back up in yourself to be the person that does. So don't feel frustrated that you can't see any progress that's being made. Just know that it's happening because you're doing the work. And every time you choose to show up for yourself, that change is growing roots. So those things are happening underneath the surface. And every time you keep a promise to yourself, those roots are getting stronger, because every tiny win compounds to make change happen. So a bit like the plants that are taking root under the surface, you just need to keep watering them in the knowledge that eventually they will sprout for you. Just like my daughter, that white belt that started off her karate journey and didn't quit and is now a black belt. Keep making those tiny promises to yourself. Keep taking those tiny actions, the stuff that you can achieve that builds on the next to form that bigger picture. If you wanted to drop a comment below letting me know maybe what you're up to just to build this community a little bit stronger, then I would love to chat with you in the comments. But if not, have a wonderful week anyway, and I will see you next time.